So this live stream lecture is inspired largely by a dream that I had last night. Literally last night, I had a dream that inspired me to have this discussion tonight in particular, and to share it with the broader audience, all of you my YouTube channel subscribers. Felt right to do so, feels right to do so, and so I do it. In my dream last night, I was taken into a parallel reality, and I was introduced to the parallel reality version of Josiah, of myself. I was quite literally flown into an apartment. And as I walked into the apartment, I looked over at the couch, and there was me, guy who looks basically exactly like me, but slight differences in appearance. And I was introduced to him, and I was told, this is a parallel reality version of yourself. This is Josiah in a parallel reality. I shook his hand and I said, well, nice to meet you. Never shaken my own hand before. I did in that moment. We sat down on the couch. We started comparing our life stories. Started comparing our life stories, started comparing our life memories. In particular, visiting specifically the differences to start. Because first I was so curious. I was like, oh my God, I've never met a parallel reality version of Josiah before. And this just really seems like something else altogether. And I have so many questions, so many questions. Like, let's talk. Like, tell me, what were the life-defining moments for you? Like, what is it about you that it makes this a parallel reality versus my story over here, what I'm living in this dream of wake? What is it about your dream of wake that is different from my dream of wake? And we started comparing stories. We started talking about what was different. And there's one event in particular that I'm extremely present to that I'm going to share in this moment. There's one event in particular that we had a very, very different experience of. So on March 17th, 2011, 8 years ago, my mother committed suicide. On March 17th, 2011. And if I could point back to one earth-shaking event in my life that really twisted my world upside down, unlike anything else, it was the experience of losing my mother to suicide. Put me on an entirely different path, a whole different path. Some of you know this story. I've shared it in other places. Whole different path. And when I sat in that moment on the couch with parallel reality Josiah, and we were talking about our respective experiences of life, I learned that his mother was still alive. He's the same age as me, literally a parallel reality version of me, living as far as I could tell in a similar world, terrestrial world, just like this, as Neville says. But his mother was still alive. And I said, how can that be? And he told me the story. And the story was the same up to the point where in my story, my mother took her own life. And in his story, my mother got help. Different decision that took place. So in his story, his mother was still alive. So one of the things that I was very present to about being very different paths, there was a couple other things that were a little bit different too, a couple different decisions that we had made at certain stages of our journey that I was like, oh, I made a different decision. And he kind of shared from his perspective the decision that he made and how it kind of split the paths, split the branches. And there were also certain things that were profoundly the same. We discovered those as well. It's interesting to me that I noted that there were certain people who have been prominent people, prominent relationships in my life for basically all of my life since childhood that were, and still to this day, to be very clear, he also, same relationship, same calibration, same level of prominence of that relationship to this very day in his life. So it's like, yes, some key differences that led to very different experiences and some key similarities. So I woke up out of this dream and I was like, oh my God, I've literally never heard of anything like this before. Like in a dream of sleep, traveling to a parallel reality and meeting myself, shaking my own hand, like it's the same face, same dude, but like different body of experiences, different level of consciousness. Like I'd never had anything like that happen before. I'm not even aware of ever even hearing about anything like that before. It's a wholly new experience. So I journaled about it. In the process of journaling about it, I was like, okay, what meaning am I going to assign to this one? Because clearly this doesn't just happen. Clearly there's an insight for me to gain the benefit of. Now I hope all of you, I fall asleep every single night in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Just as Neville teaches, that is an every single night thing. So I take the dreams of sleep that occur in my reality pretty seriously because I see it as my higher being instructing me on some level of my consciousness about what's going to come next in my life on some level. Also what Neville Goddard teaches, incidentally. But I fall asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled every single night. So when things like this happen, that gives them extra credibility, in my opinion, about the meaning in them. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready to decode this. I'm ready to profoundly understand, why was I shown this in particular? Why was I shown parallel reality Josiah? What was it about this parallel reality Josiah? Because if you subscribe to parallel reality theory, which, by the way, I'm not here to tell you whether any theory is correct or not whatsoever. I can only share from personal experience. It's all I'm trying to say about this. But if you subscribe to parallel reality theory, there are infinite parallel realities. The human mind containing the multiverse, a garden of forking paths, and every time the path forks, there's a version of you that took the other option or went the other direction, or maybe it didn't even happen to. So it's like literally all of these versions of your experience, like a multidimensional crystal that is existing in, well, I can get more into that later, but the bottom line is parallel reality theory. There is a whole spectrum of parallel reality Josiahs that I could have been shown in that moment. So why that one? Why that one? And then I remembered a Neville Goddard lecture that I had been reading. And the Neville Goddard lecture, he talks about Alice Through the Looking Glass, which is a Lewis Carroll book. And it's basically a metaphor for the dreamer who is dreaming that he is you, the dreamer that is dreaming that he is I. And that dreamer being in the dream and refusing to wake back up until his intent and purpose is accomplished in that dream. And of course, that intent and purpose of that dream is to become so affiliated, so integrated, so one with what he is dreaming that it takes on a life of his own and he becomes the dream. And why would he want to do a thing like that? Why would the king want to dream a character, a being into life? Because out of all of the possible options, of what consciousness could possibly choose to experience at any given time, of course, time is an illusion. Out of all the possible options that consciousness could choose to experience, period, out of all of that, your inner being, my inner being, chose to fall in love with this, with this expression of itself, this expression of the divine. The dreamer that is dreaming that he is you, has fallen so completely in love with you, with the character that is you. It's fallen so completely in love with that character that that dreamer decided to die, to take off all, to give up all of the multidimensional expanded capabilities and to take the form of you, the character that is playing you, character that this dreamer is playing is you. God is being you. And the reason why is because he fell in love with being you, the character that you are. That unique expression of the divine, that man, that woman, that human that you desire to be, that burning desire that is deep within your soul, that fire that inspires you, that encourages you, that gives you that drive to create. That's where that comes from. That is the seed that is planted within you. The seed that when it comes to its fullness is the fullness of expression of uniquely you, of what you truly are, your true inner expanded level being, your expanded level of consciousness, your fullness of divine expression. That's what that is. The man or the woman that you desire to be is the fullness of the divine expression of the character that is you. That's what it is. Having the ears to hear this, having the eyes to see this, is another level of consciousness. Another level of consciousness. And when I tell you that tuning into this space changes everything in your life, I'm speaking from experience. Because the way that you look at the world determines what you see in your world. So when you change your eyes, you see a different world. It's like hopping timelines. It's like hopping parallel realities. It's literally stepping into an alternate version of you, but you have the ability to do it just within yourself. You don't have to go somewhere to do it. You don't have to talk to somebody to do it. You can be taught how to do it. I mean, part of what I'm doing in this moment, but the bottom line is that it all occurs within you. It's not outside of you. You get to choose the being that you're expressing. And really what that is that's the shades, that's the spectrum. That being can express any possible way. So let me ask you a question. What is the most beautiful way that you can express the divine being that you are? What is your most beautiful expression? That is what you are here to create, to make manifest from the higher dimensions into the physical 3D reality. It's literally why we're here doing this right now. It's a perfect, never-ending present moment. It's the whole reason we're having this experience. The whole reason we're incarnated into this form, doing this, is to be that fullness. Have the experience of waking up to that fullness. A seed doesn't pop out of the ground and it's instantly in bloom. No, it's a process. Your expansion to fullness occurs the exact same way. It is a growth. It is a development. It's coming into harmony. It's coming into bloom. It's bearing fruit. And that's what I mean when I talk about inspired to greatness. Because there's only one being that you're trying to be. And that's the most beautiful expression of you. So why was I shown parallel reality version of Josiah? Why was I shown parallel reality version of Josiah's life? Why was I shown the differences and the similarities? So that I could become profoundly present in this moment, so present to where it inspires my sharing with you, my other selves pushed out in this moment. So I could become so profoundly aware that it was this Josiah that my inner being fell in love with. Passionately, to the point where it inspired me taking this form in this life, with this chain of events, with this life story, to bring this seed to fullness of expression. I would not have traded lives with parallel reality, Josiah. I wouldn't have. I was profoundly present to that as well. I was like, all right, well, you made the decisions that you made. I made the decisions I made. And I am so glad I made the decisions that I made. You had the story play out that you had play out. I had the story I had play out. You know what? Yes, mine included a very painful, traumatic event. But you know what? I see the beauty in it because those are the eyes through which I see. I see the beauty in it. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Because I'm in love with this story. I'm in love with me. I'm in love with the idea of bringing my expression to fullness. And if you're hearing my words in this moment, I am your inner being speaking to you right now. It's just as true for you as it is for me. I am you. You are me. Self-love isn't something you do once. It's not an activity you undertake. It's a way of being. It's a fullness of expression. Self-love is a fullness of expression, a way of being. It's a habit and practice of mastery. Imagine wisely, my friends.